Philly Debatable, the show that debates the Philly sports topics you're discussing.
And away we go, and it is another edition of Philly Debatable. Hello, everybody. Sean Brace, John Jansen. Today's date, June 20th. It is a Tuesday, and the eyes of the baseball world are upon us. John Jansen, how you doing today, sir? You ready to go?
I'm doing great. It's surprising that it's June 20th. We're already third through the summer season.
We're talking about quarter number 3 of 2023, fast approaching, right? All right, with that, let's go ahead and dive into question number 1 here for Philly Debatable. Sean Brace, John Jansen, and as I just said, the eyes of the MLB world are upon us. And do you know why that is, John?
I wonder if it's because some of the 3 best winning streaks happen to be in the NL East, one of them being the Phillies.
That is correct, sir. And the Phillies and Braves will be matching up for a best of 3 here at Citizens Bank Park. And not a best of 3 because it's not the MLB playoffs, but you understand what I'm saying. It is a 3-game series. And then they got the Mets immediately following after that. For today's Philly Debatable question number 1, John Jansen, I'll start with you. Have the Braves already won the NL East crown? Now, before everyone gets all crazy and says, wait a minute, it's June 20th, anything can happen. That's where I stand. Jansen's going to tell you a little something different, and I want to bring in the DraftKings odds on this, as the odds for the Atlanta Braves to win the division right now are pretty high. They're at minus 700 to do so. So the odds makers are telling you that essentially the Braves are a shoo-in to win this division. I'm going to say not so fast, but what do you say?
Yeah, it's over. So the Braves are 20 games over 500. They just won another 6-game winning streak. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're the best team in the National League, maybe the best team in baseball right now. Obviously, you would have to, I think, put them behind Tampa Bay. And Atlanta's doing this with some pitching problems. They have some injuries at pitchers. Mike Soroka obviously just came back, and he's going to take a while to get acclimated. So they've been kind of stringing together this bullpen out of minor league pitchers and still doing very well. And 20 games over 500 is nothing to laugh at. And look, yeah, they had a bit of a lull in the beginning of June and end of May, but that lull is a lot different than the Phillies' lull. The Phillies had to work so hard to get over 500, not just over 500, so hard to get over 4 games over 500, while the Braves are 20 games over. It's just a difference of these two teams. The Braves are the best team in the National League. The Phillies are trying to fight for that wild card spot, fight to stay over 500. I think that they've successfully done that, but just think about how hard that was for the Phillies to do. Then think how hard it's going to be to get 20 games over 500.
Understood.
I just don't see it happen.
Understood. Yep. The numbers are in favor of the Atlanta Braves, and that's why you see such a high price tag on DraftKings. But I would follow up by saying this. They don't play the game on paper, right? And you're looking at a team last year that did take them, if I'm not mistaken, into playoffs, right? If I'm not mistaken, the Phillies beat the Braves last year, right? So they just had their first series. So, they got a ton more games to play. And I know things changed in this season as far as inter-division games. But bottom line is there's still a long way to go in this season. So right here, right now, the Phillies just went down to Atlanta and took 2 of 4. They got a big 3-game series here at Citizens Bank Park. If they were to sweep Atlanta, all right, and then carry that into the Mets, there's just too much time for me to sit here and answer this question with yes. No way am I going to sit here and tell you that anybody has anything wrapped up right now unless they have a 15 to 20 game advantage on the second place team. There's just too much baseball. When you play 162, the craziest things can happen. We've seen it time and time again. So for me right now, have the Braves already won the NL East crown? Absolutely not. And I'll take it a step further. If you look, all right, and you want to go ahead and maybe take someone that could catch up to the Braves for the best record in the National League or represent the National League in the World Series, if it's not the Braves, who else is it? For me, I have to look at the Phillies. Look, I love what's happening in Cincinnati. It's a fun team to watch, but come on, they're going to go through a tough stretch. And then what happens? Is Joey Votto going to save the day? We'll see. I'm not buying anything out of that Central. So we go over to the West. Dodgers are in trouble. Pitching is terrible this season. Starting pitching is terrible. They're not getting the hits that they used to. I don't know if age is catching up to them or not, or it will at the end of this season, but they're not the same LA Dodgers that we have seen in the last 5, 6, 7 seasons. Staying in that West, Giants just swept the Dodgers. I don't believe in the Giants. And the Diamondbacks, again, I think they will deal with similar issues like the Cincinnati Reds. So I have to come back to the Phillies. I do. And you're getting consistent starting pitching. You're getting Ranger Suarez in game 1 tonight. I'm telling you, if the Phillies do handle business and sweep the Atlanta Braves, this NL East division is up for grabs.
I don't think the NL East division is up for grabs, and I think you're kind of going with two different conversations here, because I agree with you. There's any team, I think, in position to maybe take the National League crown away from the Braves and make a berth into the World Series. I think that team is the Phillies. I'm not that invested in Arizona. I'm definitely not invested in San Francisco. The Dodgers have shown their problems with the bullpen, and you're right, any team in the NL Central does not have any shot of making it to the World Series. So the Phillies are in that discussion, but this discussion to win the NL East crown, the Braves have already gone through sort of their bumps and bruises. You know, you say anything can happen in baseball. The Braves have already gone through that anything can happen, and they're going through it 20 games over 500. They're going to be too tough to catch. They're built for the regular season. They're going to probably have the best record in the National League, and the Phillies aren't going to compete with that. The Braves are winning and essentially, I think, already won the National League East. But once you get into the playoffs in the National League, the Braves are going to be the favorites. But I think a team that's going to be a contender to knock them out would be the Phillies.
You could take DraftKings Sportsbook right now. The Phillies at plus 1,100 to win the NL East. I
would not take that. Now, National League, if you want to give me a number there, there's probably if I'm not taking that number. If you want to give me National League, that's a different story because the records don't reset themselves right now. The Braves and Phillies aren't even in this race. There is a huge handicap for the Phillies, and the Phillies aren't going to catch up in that circumstance. So I think the Braves are going to win in the NL East pretty handily. Okay. But once the records are gone, once you now are in a 7-game series, I think the Phillies are one of the few teams that can compete.
Do me a favor. Look at your camera when you talk. That's number one.
Yeah.
It's not a normal.
I'm looking. I know. I'm trying to look at you. I'm
That's it.
Cameras.
Right. Question number 2. Mike Powers behind the scenes making this happen. My goodness, he is the
best. Trying
to
ask a radio guy to look into a camera.
There you go. All right. Question number 2. We had a lot of moving pieces from the NBA as far as new players heading into new locations for the upcoming season. And Bradley Beal was a player that we discussed a lot last week right here on the Daily Ticket. Well, that trade went through, and Bradley Beal will now be heading west to Phoenix to join the Phoenix Suns. So, John Jansen, the question for us right here on Philly Debatable: does Bradley Beal to the Suns make them the favorite in your mind in the West?
So I think this is being dismissed too quickly, what Phoenix is doing, because I think you just look at 3 scores: Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and that's essentially all that they have other than DeAndre Ayton. They have no bench. They have no depth, all the concerns that they had last year, but those are 3 significant scores. And I think 3 scores that can coexist. I get Bradley Beal is regressing, but I think you don't need 30-point per game Bradley Beal. I just think you need a solid shooter, Bradley Beal. I think you need a solid scorer, Bradley Beal, and I think he is still that. You have 3 guys that, yes, all scorers, but very unselfish scorers. Kevin Durant, I would not consider selfish. He was in Golden State around all those great players and Steph and Clay, and he was unselfish. Devin Booker has been unselfish at his time in Phoenix. And Bradley Beal, I don't know if I should be looking at him this way, but I don't see him as a selfish, needs to have the ball in his hands all the time type of player. I think it can coexist. But in terms of being a favorite, I just don't see how you can do that. It's still only 3 players against an entire army that Denver has. They're a couple deep into the bench. They have one of the best 1 through 5s, probably the best 1 through 5s in the entire league, and the reigning 2-time MVP and also reigning NBA Finals MVP.
Yeah.
So
pretty good.
I think Denver's should be the favorite, but I don't want to easily dismiss Phoenix, though. I think that's a little premature for that.
Agreed. Now, what I will say is, to answer this question, as we always do, Bradley Beal to the Suns to make them the favorite in the West? Well, DraftKings would tell you, number 1, no. Denver, of course, and I believe to win the West plus 250, Phoenix plus 350 right now. Immediately following Phoenix is Golden State plus 650. Again, a long way to go. We got the NBA draft coming up on Thursday. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces there. Does Damian Lillard get chipped, right? Are we talking about Zion? Is he out? Again, New Orleans had things rolling this year. They looked good for the beginning of a little bit more than just the beginning. So there's going to be more moving parts this offseason. It's the NBA. But as we sit right now, no, I have to give it to Denver. What we just saw with Denver in the past couple seasons, of course, what we just saw in the NBA Finals and the playoffs, it's not a fluke. And you know what's going through their minds? They want more. It's not about just the one chip for them. So to answer this question, yes, it's the Denver Nuggets. They're number one as far as odds-on favorite. But to bring it back to what you're discussing, Bradley Beal helps the Phoenix Suns. It's a third scorer. And when you get a guy like that teamed up with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, two of the best scorers the game's ever seen, if we're honest, of course things are going to be a little bit easier as far as the scoring department is concerned in Phoenix. The problem that I'm having is twofold: defense and bench scoring. So if the GM out there is able to make moves and get some other players that can help them, fine. But when you spend the amount of money that they have on these three players, yeah, you're not going to get the best help coming off the bench. So for me, the Phoenix Suns to win it all, no, I'll pass on that. I would go to the Denver Nuggets, although it's been 5 straight seasons and we've had 5 different NBA champions. So there's something to be said about that as well. All right, we answered that one. Again, a lot of moving parts as far as the NBA is concerned. Question number 3, let's keep it moving here on Philly Debatable. Speaking of moving parts, Memphis, which is interesting in my mind from the Draymond Green standpoint. We'll save that question for another day. But Ja Morant over the weekend got 25 games. He'll be suspended for the start of the season, 25 games to open up. They play 82 in the NBA. And it's really tough to do this because I heard some other people discussing that's good for like a 4-game suspension in the NFL. I don't know if you could really compare as far as that is concerned. 25 games. Yeah, I think they leveled them pretty good here. I'll go first on this one. He went from 8-game suspension to the 25 games. I already hear Ja Morant giving the excuses and who knows what's true and what's not. I hope that this kid understands that he cannot make any more mistakes. He's got to be on his best behavior, or he could very well be dealing with a full season suspension. That's not what we want from Ja Morant. He is highlight reel 5 to 6 times a season where you just stop in your tracks going, did you see that? What was that? How can Ja Morant just levitate like that? I mean, he's a short dude and he is a just crusher on the basketball floor. So we need him out there just from the fan standpoint. It's disgusting. It can't happen anymore. I know he's young, but he's really, really getting the special treatment, in my opinion, to a point. I thought he was going to see a little bit more, maybe a 40-game suspension I thought that we would see. I think that's what I was on record. Didn't say half the season, or I didn't say 50 games like a lot of people were floating out there. I said half the season. So 25 games, I'm not going to say a slap on the wrist by no means, but Ja, come on, man. You got to be better.
You do, but is 25 games the one to do it? You know, I don't know what the exact punishment needs to be. You know, I don't think there is an exact punishment here. Now, if you want to take a look at 8 to 25, yeah, that kind of seems right. Compared to the first one, 8 games, and you're more than doubling that, almost tripling that.
Correct.
I understand that, and it kind of makes sense in that way. But maybe it is too much. You know, 40 games, I think, would have been a lot. 25 seems like a lot because I think you're right. More of this is about what can the NBA do to get through the Ja's head? Hey, you can't do this. No. What he's doing isn't illegal. What he's doing isn't essentially, I don't think, putting anybody too much in harm's way. Now, obviously, it's a gun. Obviously, we know that is a weapon and it's used for a certain reason. So, yes, it is a harmful, dangerous item to have. But he's not harming anyone. That's not his intention. It doesn't seem like, obviously, that's not his intention. So all you got to do is just get through to him. And I don't know if 25 games is a way to do that. What is the way to do that? Should there have been better ways? Are there better ways to maybe rehabilitate him? I don't know. But 25 games, it makes sense. I have no issue with it. But once you get to your point of digging further down into that, how do you just make him better? How do you get through to this person? Hey, what you're doing isn't right, even though if it necessarily isn't against the law, if it isn't the worst thing in the world, how do you get through? Hey, this is still
Look at the camera.
not a good path to go on.
Look at the camera. 1.
Yes.
2, I would tell you is
I thought you were talking to Ja too. Hey, look
money.
at the camera, Ja.
He's making a lot of money. He's losing a lot of money. And again, third strike, he doesn't want to see a third strike. He shouldn't see a third strike. And again, these, and I don't know what's true and what's not. like I said to start here, but you are seeing people saying, well, Josh Camp feels like he's being targeted by the media wrongly here. And then it was a fake lighter. Stop it. Enough of the nonsense, Jaw. You're a grown-ass man. Start acting like it. It's tough, though. It's really tough. I'm not in his shoes. I wasn't handed a boatload of money. He's making a ton of coin. Hopefully, when he starts to see some of those zeros dissipate, maybe it will register. But until then,
pointing a camera at yourself or having somebody pointed at you, it seems like you're a target of yourself and you're trying to be the target.
You looked at the camera. Nice job there.
Thank
All
you.
right, on to the next question here. Philly Debatable. It is a Tuesday. Let's keep it moving as far as the association is concerned and the NBA draft all in one, I believe. If you were the New Orleans Pelicans, John Jansen, you can go first on this one. Would you trade Zion before the upcoming draft? It's being rumored out there that there are some players that New Orleans really has their eyes on, and they're just ready to sign off on Zion to move on. And from the experiment that was for Zion, I really don't say it's an experiment. He was the number 1 overall pick. He was a beast at college, just has failed to deliver down there in New Orleans. But if you were the general manager for the New Orleans Pelicans, would you trade Zion?
All I'm going to say is for all of us, whatever happens, hopefully the sex tapes are not released. Nobody needs to see that on social media. Please don't let that happen. So if that means he needs to be traded and out of New Orleans or in a different city or maybe stay in New Orleans, I have no idea. But please, God, don't unleash that on the internet. But it seems over in New Orleans. There seems to be no relationship there. And, I don't want to be too reactive because you mentioned this earlier here on Philly Debatable that Zion Williamson, when he was on the floor, New Orleans was the best team in the Western Conference. Now, they were a good team. They were an all right team. Through a decent sample size of the season, they were the best team in the Western Conference. It's hard to move on from that. But if that Zion Williamson doesn't want to do that with you and doesn't want to be all in, and he had a chance to, I think, come back last season, and it seemed like he opted not to.
Yes. And
so,
no.
Yes, there is a possibility that if he's on the floor for you, that you have a guy that can get you to being a number 1 seed. Just doesn't seem like he wants to be on the floor for you. So, yeah, if I'm New Orleans, I think the best way to just do this is move on and try and find somebody else because it just doesn't seem like Zion wants you.
I'll tell you what, 2019, it was a no question about it, right? It was take Zion number 1 and everything else will just work itself out. And here we are now with Zion and Ja and everything along that came with that conversation.
Two great players. That
last year, I had people
issues.
tweet me, oh, you told me it was Zion and everything else. And then, okay, well, now what would you do with your job?
You actually, because I remember all those job people came at you. I think you can actually come back at them. Hey, who's it working out for?
Correct.
It seems like it's working out for neither of them.
Well, and it's interesting from this standpoint because Zion, it was just 2019, but what has he done in New Orleans? It's been difficult from afar to really gauge what he's been able to do on the floor for them because I'm not in these meetings. I'm not at practice. I'm not at training camp. I'm not in the facilities where he's rehabbing. Is he all in? Like, is his weight fluctuating? Is he eating? Has he brought down? Because there are stipulations in this contract that if he is above a certain amount of weight, he loses money. Are those things going off? Like, that's where I have to back down and bow down to all things happening behind the scenes in New Orleans. Me from afar, I just don't say trade him because I don't know what you can get in value in return. And on top of that, the money you can give him after a rookie contract. You can give him more money than anybody else. He's not going to leave. He's not going to pass up on that money. We've been down that path with Ben Simmons. They are not going to pass up that type of money. So Zion, are you willing to just move on because you're in love with Scoot Henderson, who is a really good talent? But, here we go again with draft prospects. For me, if I'm New Orleans, I got to hold steady with this. And I have to believe I got to challenge Zion to be the player that we thought we were getting in return when we drafted him number 1 overall from Duke. And again, even if they don't have the wins or the championship drive, at least Zion out there is doing what he was supposed to do, put butts in seats, right? Throw down those ungodly dunks, dominate. Be the guy that we thought they were getting number 1 overall. And I think everything will take care of itself, but he's got to be able to play, and he hasn't been able to do that. That's one, too, is if you're a team out there that wants to, that's interested in getting Zion, how much are you willing to give up? Because what has he done in New Orleans? That's just going to carry over to you, whether it's a new franchise. People want to build this up in their mind saying, oh, a new home's going to change them. No, who you are there is who you are going to be there in the new spot. So as far as I'm concerned right now, you don't trade Zion. You got to work this through. 2019 wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't. And I think in that time, though, we have seen him on the floor enough to know that he is a very good basketball player. So I think he's going to intrigue a team enough. And with New Orleans, I think you're right. I think it is right to pursue things moving forward with Zion on your team, on your floor. I just don't know if Zion wants that. If he doesn't want to have a relationship with your team, if he doesn't trust your team, if you don't trust him, there's no use of moving forward with him just for the promise of what he has been as a player on the floor. If this is strictly basketball sense, I think you're right, but I don't think it's that. I think there is a lot more underneath that needs to get resolved, and I'm not sure if it can.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Philly Debatable on a Tuesday, not a Thursday, on a Tuesday. And for John Jansen, I have to throw in one NFL question to keep him entertained, keep him engaged, if that's all right. And I figured this would be wheelhouse material. So our final question on Philly Debatable here. Over the weekend, Pro Football Focus came out with their preseason layout as far as players and where they rank at each position, right? And the one that really caught all the eyes and, of course, outrage is when they discussed the quarterback position, as always. And here in Philadelphia, we got a pretty good one in Jalen Hurts. But how good is Jalen Hurts in the eyes of Pro Football Focus? Well, there are 6 other starting quarterbacks that are better in their eyes than Jalen Hurts. So the question to you, John Jansen, is Pro Football Focus correct in that thought process that there are 6 quarterbacks better than Jalen Hurts?
Now, to be fair, it's not like they're far off from where Jalen Hurts maybe should be.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think there are a couple quarterbacks in front of Jalen Hurts that should be. He's probably a top 5 quarterback. I would feel safe putting him. God, let me make my point.
Is he a top 5 quarterback?
I was going to say, I think it's safe to put him in the top 5. I think he is a top 5 quarterback. Now, if you want to move things around a little bit, because I'm one guy that I think Trevor Lawrence should be a top 5 quarterback, but it's really hard to do that when a guy like Jalen Hurts had the season that he did last year. But I think Trevor Lawrence obviously has shown potential to be a top 5 quarterback and looked like one last year. So you're just kind of getting to a crowded space where there are a lot of guys I can look at as top 5 quarterbacks that just don't make that number because of how good they are. It's a crowded top of the list, top of the field. Now, I don't know who was in front of him to make him 7th, but I think Jalen Hurts should be a top 5 quarterback. But to be fair from PFF, it's not like they're that far off.
Well, do your research. Sorry, I had to call you out on that one.
Okay, do my research. You're trying to send me a PFF list, and there are a million of them out there, and I don't need to read all of them.
Pro Football Focus quarterback rankings, all 32 starters ahead of the 2023 NFL season. They just came out with it. Anyways.
You think I'm reading PFF's quarterback
Mahomes
list?
is 1.
I'm still reading
Who's
Chris
2?
Sims trying to figure that one out.
Who's 2?
It's got to be Joe Burrow.
No.
Okay, this list sucks.
Josh Allen.
Okay, this list sucks.
Joe Burrow 3. Justin Herbert 4. Aaron Rodgers 5.
How is Aaron Rodgers 5?
Lamar Jackson 6. Those are the 6 starting quarterbacks.
Lamar Jackson at 6.
That they have better than Jalen Hurts.
Wait. Aaron Rodgers above that many quarterbacks?
I'll read you what they have in front of it. They said we are only a year removed for Rodgers coming off back-to-back MVP seasons.
Awesome.
But at 39 years old, any downturn in performance inevitably raises questions on whether this is the beginning of the end.
It doesn't have to be the beginning of the end. It's just that there are quarterbacks that are making significant leaps in their career that are going to be over Aaron Rodgers. It's not spelling the end for Rodgers. It's just he's not the guy anymore.
Yep.
He's not at the top of that list. So, yeah, Aaron Rodgers, that confuses me a lot. And also, can we just stop with the Josh Allen being a number 2 quarterback?
Well, I'm okay.
I'm not okay with it.
With Josh Allen being in the top 5. It's just you have to include Jalen Hurts in the top 5. Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in the league. And that's where my hair gets raised with this question. Because, no, I'm not okay if you're going to tell me there are 6 starting quarterbacks better than Jalen Hurts. It's not. And as much as I believe in Aaron Rodgers, he is 39 years old. And he did have a bad season last year. I do believe it was more towards the thumb injury, the hand injury that he was dealing with. But Aaron Rodgers threw multiple terrible interceptions in a lot of big games and failed to make the playoffs in a pretty decent Green Bay Packers team in a bad division. So as far as I'm concerned, Aaron Rodgers going to New York, yeah, the hype is there. The buildup, of course, the Jets haven't done anything in years. They have only the one Super Bowl to speak of. Of course, I get it. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you Aaron Rodgers is a better starting quarterback than Jalen Hurts. No. Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback. So to answer this question, no, I'm not okay. Again, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. Yeah, okay. But you better have Jalen Hurts in that conversation as well. I don't care how you shift those quarterbacks. Just keep Mahomes at 1. The other 4, you can mix and match. But sorry, Lamar, you got to prove it back to me. And I think Lamar Jackson is going to have a big season throwing the football. We'll talk about that later, of course, in the summertime. But Aaron Rodgers, you're just asking him to do a lot for the New York Jets in year 1 at age 39 if you think he's going to have a better season than Jalen Hurts.
But you're saying all those guys that are behind Aaron Rodgers, that Aaron Rodgers has a better chance to be an MVP caliber player because Lamar Jackson could be an MVP this. Exactly. Lamar Jackson could be an MVP this year. Trevor Lawrence could be an MVP this year. Jalen Hurts could be an MVP this year. All of those guys have a better chance and a more significant chance to have their MVP year than Aaron Rodgers with a new team at 39.
Yes.
It's just no reason to have him that high.
Agree. Well, when you put out a list, you got to throw a little something in there to get the people talking like we are here on Philly Debatable. Great stuff. Nice job on Mike Powers behind the scenes. As always, be sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube at Fox Sports The Gambler and never miss a daily ticket Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. on The Gambler, always streaming on the iHeartRadio app, FM, AM, HD2. John Jansen, 30 seconds on the clock. You know what to do here.
Oh, let's stick with PFF. PFF grades were shown for Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. They have the most 90-plus PFF grades in the NFL since 2021. No Patrick Mahomes near that list. PFF grades, they don't mean anything anymore. We have enough analytics. We have enough numbers, correlations to know where a quarterback is good and how a quarterback is good. And Patrick Mahomes tops all of those lists. We don't need PFF grades anymore. PFF grades, if they don't have Patrick Mahomes as the highest graded quarterback, then they're irrelevant. They're irrelevant at this point. There are enough pundits, enough good writers over at PFF that we can still use that website. But in terms of their grades, let's just get away with it. We already know what the analytics say, and the analytics say that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL.
All right, my 30 seconds simply over to the 76ers, and they're in trouble because it feels like they're just going to roll out the same team that we had last year, and I just don't know if that's going to be enough to even get half of this fan base to believe that this team could take that next step to win an NBA championship. That's what it's all about, folks. It's about winning an NBA championship for me. It's not about getting to that Eastern Conference Finals. I don't give a damn about any of that. I don't care what happens in the regular season. It's about winning a ring. Did you see what happened in Denver? I want that. I want my coach to be annihilated on the microphone. I want to be slamming beers off my head with PJ Tucker. All right, that's what I want here in Philly.
You're not going to do that with PJ Tucker.
And it's not going to happen with James Harden and the same 76ers team that took the court last year and failed to get the job done in Game 6 with 5 minutes to go. And then all of a sudden you get Nick Nurse in here in the same cast of characters, and I'm supposed to believe that that's going to be enough to get this team to an NBA championship.
Can I ask you that as a curious question?
What?
Is it rolling it back with the same team if
Yes.
you do switch coaches? Because coaches make it a different team.
Yeah, to a
That
point.
would be like switching a different director for a movie. It's going to look different. You're
To
going to
a
have the
point.
same characters. You're going to have the same cast members, but it's not all going to be shown the same
I
way.
think we know who James Harden is when it comes to playoff time.
Who knows? Maybe Nick Nurse is Steven Spielberg, though.
We'll see. Hopefully that is the case. All right, that will do it for us here at Philly Debatable. Everybody subscribe over on our YouTube channel at Fox Sports The Gambler, please. And as always, daily ticket Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Shout out Mike Powers and everybody behind the scenes helping. This has been another edition of Philly Debatable. We'll be back on Thursday. Everybody have a great day.